Hello, Act 4, Scene 4. We are very, very near the end of the act, and actually, to be fair, of the play. Now, this is another really, really short one, and this is again just setting up even more of the character development, of the kind of tragedy through dramatic irony that we're seeing a lot of in this act. And we start with Lady Capulet and the nurse, and basically, this is a scene where the preparations are happening for the next day, which is the wedding day. So really, the only thing I'm going to talk about is kind of Capulet's response to what's going on. And I think that's kind of the purpose of this scene, that Shakespeare's put this in to show us how Capulet is trying to make everything perfect. I think we learn in this scene that he is someone who tries to make things perfect. This is a scene often I think we can talk about where a question of how caring is Capulet as a father. Not is he a good father, but how caring is he? Does he actually care about his children? And I think this scene is one that shows that he does care. So we see a lot of kind of preparations taking place. You know, the idea of finding more spices, and you know the cooks need more stuff in the bakery and the pastry chefs. And Capulet comes in, and he tries. You know, he's saying, "Come on, everyone needs to wake up, wake up." So that's what the stir means. You know, stir as in kind of everyone needs to wake up. Bear in mind, it's in the middle of the night at the moment. It's starting to get very early in the morning. 'Tis 3 o'clock. Look to the bake meats. Spare not for cost. So he is really willing to put everything into this. Now remember, contextually, weddings are all about showing off and all about power, status, money, and kind of every kind of wealth you can imagine. Not just monetary wealth, but social wealth and kind of honor. Now the nurse says, and kind of is a bit jokey with him, "Go, you cot queen," as in, you're acting like a housewife. You need to calm down. And she also says, "Get you to bed. You'll be sick tomorrow for the night's watching." So she's saying you need to go and get some sleep. Look at you. You need to calm down. You're acting like a housewife. You're acting like someone who hasn't, slept in weeks. You need to go and get some rest before the big day. And then he says, "I have watched before now all night for a lesser cause." So he says, "I've been up all night for loads of different reasons throughout my life, and I've never been sick as a result of it. Yes, this is a more important one, but I've never been sick before, and I've stayed up for much less important reasons." Being, the idea is that this is really important to him, so he's not going to get sick, and he's stayed up before for lesser important things. We notice that Capulet's got everything he wants. He wanted Juliet to be submissive, and she's acting that way. He wanted her to marry Paris, and she's agreed to do that. Obviously, we know dramatic irony, that's not the way it's going to go, and that's not the reason she's being submissive and kind of doing what he says. But on his perspective, his character perspective, structural feature, he's got everything he wants. So he should be completely at ease. He should be completely serene, calm, and kind of ready for the next day. But instead, he's had a restless night, he's panicking, he's stressed. We're realising that he's almost foreshadowing, Shakespeare is foreshadowing through Capulet's unease that tragedy is about to strike, that all is not well. He should be completely at ease, and yet he's not. Something's going on, something bigger. And obviously fate, the idea of the stars kind of deciding what happens, and the idea that there is no free will in this play almost, that everything's fated to happen, may kind of hint towards that. Now we also get a hint into the marriage between Lady and Lord Capulet, because she says, "Hey, you have been a mouse hunt in your time. So yeah, I know that, in your time you've been a right ladies' man. You've stayed up all night for the wrong reasons, sleeping around with loads of different women, being a womanizer." So she gets that kind of little dig in. Clearly not a happy marriage. We saw this in Act 1, where he talked about people who get married too young ruin themselves. And he kind of hints that it's Lady Capulet as well. We're not seeing a happy marriage between the two. The only happy thing that came from this marriage was Juliet. You remember in Act 3, Scene 5, it talks about, we thought we were blessed to have this one child. That this is what life was about. This is what gave them meaning. And now she was being disrespectful, and that kind of ruined it. So Lady Capulet and the nurse leave, and he says that she's just jealous, or she's a jealous woman. And then more kind of servants and stuff appear, and he's got to make more decisions. And he's back to kind of organising this big party and this big event. If you remember in Act 1, Scene 5, with the Capulet party scene, we saw a very similar Lord Capulet there, where he was trying to kind of, he said, more light, and he's trying to get the party as perfect as possible. It's all about image, and it's all about being perfect. Now, at the very end here, look, he says that it's day. He says, good faith, 'tis day. So he looks up and the sun is starting to rise. One of the things I think is worth noting in this part that we see a kind of repetition in terms of the structural symbolism is the use of the sun, okay? So we've just seen good faith, 'tis day. So the sun is starting to rise. Now, before I get to that one, I'm going to explain a few others. In the balcony scene, in Act 3, Scene 1, so the fight scene, and in Act 3, Scene 5, the one where Juliet refuses to do what her father says, we see the sun in each of those, and it kind of leads to tragedy very soon after. So in the balcony scene, Romeo calls Juliet the sun. He says Juliet is the sun. He uses that metaphor. And in that scene, immediately after that, they kind of agree to marry. Yeah, a couple of, 20 minutes later, they agree to marry, and that kind of seals their fate. In Act 3, Scene 1, we see Benvolio talking about the day being hot and the couples are abroad. And then obviously that scene is a very, very tragic one. We see the sun playing its kind of, its role in that in terms of the heat. And then in Act 3, Scene 5, when Juliet and Romeo are waking up on the balcony, well, they've woken up and they're on the balcony, and they are looking out into the distance, and they see the light breaking through the clouds. Yeah? And obviously that precedes Juliet refusing to do what her father says, and then that whole thing kicking off. So every time we're seeing the sun kind of almost foreshadowing some element of tragedy. Okay? Now again, this is a classic thing of an English teacher going off on a tangent about something that is probably a bit of a stretch. But again, if we want to be masters of English, it's these kind of bigger ideas we need to consider. Yeah? We don't know the answer, but we could infer that that is possibly what is being done. And that's what the subject is about. So in this scene, he says, good faith, 'tis day. The sun comes up, and we know, dramatic irony, that they're about to find Juliet dead. She's not really dead, she's faked to death, but they're about to find her dead. It's about to be tragedy. And the sun is kind of signalling that this is going to go worse and worse and worse for the Capulets, as well as everyone else. So then the scene ends with more kind of hasty language. So he says, make haste, go and waken her, go and trim her up. There's a lot of imperative verbs that are being seen, where he is trying to, again, sort everything out, make it all perfect, and he wants, Juliet to go and be ready so the day can kind of start and everything can kind of get back to normal almost after a pretty tragic couple of days. And that is where he exits and the scene ends. So there's only one more scene in this act, and it is where Juliet is found by her family. Now, it's an important point, I think, as well to mention that Romeo is never seen in this act. The focus is on Juliet, and that's an important point to make, that even though it's called Romeo and Juliet, a lot of the focus is on Juliet throughout this. That she just plays as an important part as anything else. And that's why I think it's more justified to say that it's almost as if Juliet's causing all this stuff by being the sun, fiery influence that is in Romeo's life and causes all this to happen. And it's not just on Romeo's shoulders, despite Romeo, he causes the death of the most people in the play. And after the last scene, we'll do a little tally of that. Because it is surprising how many people die as a result of Romeo's actions. Okay, so that is it for this one. Got any questions, do let me know. And in the meantime, stay safe. Bye-bye.